This video will explain the answer to the following question. Please be sure to pause or rewind the video whenever you need to go over something again. The top of the ladder, leaning against the building, reaches a point on the building which is 29 feet above the ground. If the base of the ladder is 7 feet from the building, what is the measure of the angle that makes the ladder level with the ground to the nearest degree? So from this picture, you can tell that there is a height and that there is a base, and that those two happen to be perpendicular to each other. Since they are perpendicular, I drew in my right angle, and you can now see a right triangle forming with that ladder as the hypotenuse, since it is across from the 90-degree angle. Okay? So in order to solve this type of question, you need to ask yourselves two questions. Which trig formula will I use, SO, CA, or TOA? We already labeled the hypotenuse, so let's label our opposite side now. So go to the input angle and go across from it. That opposite side is the height that the ladder is leaning against the building. So it's the height of the building, 29 feet. And the adjacent side, you go next to that input angle. So that's going to be the distance along the ground horizontally, that's 7 feet. So you can tell that from this problem, the opposite side and the adjacent side has measurements. The hypotenuse does not have measurements. So I can't use a problem that has a hypotenuse in it. I need to use a formula that has just the opposite and just the adjacent in both of them. So that means I'll be using tan of my input angle equals my opposite over adjacent. That is the formula we'll be using. So next I got to ask myself the question, am I solving for a side or an angle? Since it wants to know the angle that the ladder makes the level to the nearest degree, I know I'm solving for an angle, meaning I want the inverse tan, not the regular tan. Regular tan is if you're solving for a side. So we're going to, instead of solving for our input angle, we're using regular tan, we're going to be using tan inverse, which is a -1 in an exponent spot like that. Okay? So we're going to be using this tan inverse. But we need to figure out what we're putting inside our tan inverse spot. So in order to do that, let's go back to our original formula. We want to find the tan of our input angle, and that needs to be equal to our opposite, which is 29, over our adjacent, which is 7. When we use tan inverse, we plug in the ratio inside our tan inverse to determine what the angle is going to be. So you need to type tan inverse by hitting second and tan on your calculator, and that's how you'll get tan with the little -1 notation. And then you want to take that of your 29 over 7, because that was what our opposite and adjacent side was. So make sure you're in degree mode and type that into your calculator. And when you do, you're going to get an answer, but it won't be rounded. You have to round it to the nearest degree. So when you round it to the nearest degree, you're going to get 76 degrees as your answer.